Hey everybody, it's Modern Geek, also known as Vamp Mario. We are back with another live painting video. It is Monday and it is our Marvel Crisis Protocol day. As always, like to invite everybody to join us every Monday. We try to start the show at 10, which we've actually been pretty good about getting ourselves on and live. So I'm super happy about that. We're still a little challenged by the other shows, but I'm going to get a lot better. So we get those on target. As a reminder, we do AOS fantasy painting on Tuesdays. We do, which I'm very excited. We're going to be doing different indie artwork on Wednesdays, and we did our first live show where we did character portraits for D&D characters, which you may or may not see those used in other places. So come enjoy that show. We're also going to go over other ways to use digital means to create other assets for D&D campaigns. So we're going to start playing around with creating maps. We're going to start playing around with creating other stuff. And then Thursdays is always our 40K night. So you can join us then. And then Fridays, which my hope is by midweek to launch the new Patreon, we're going to do a Patreon only show. So you guys will be able to jump in. I hope that this is still free music. So the idea is that we will be getting Friday is going to be our patrons only show. So it's going to be where once that Patreon launches, you will actually be able to go and do that. And there'll be other tiers and some other fun stuff. Little light stuff to start with, and then we might add some other tiers and things as time progresses. But that Patreon is going to be a really important cornerstone to our new format and stuff, because that Patreon is going to tie into a lot of future projects. One that is super advantageous. I believe you didn't think I was going to be talking about now, but eventually, I'm not going to talk completely about it yet. But we're in definitely preliminary planning stages of something that would definitely drive and help. Because this channel is super important not only for itself, but also for other projects that I'm looking to jump into. So, and some other future things down the road. As always, I like to just shout out again our sponsor for this video, Undiscovered Realms, for hooking us up and always being able to get the models I need from them. I'm super happy, as always, and they always help us out. They're great people, great folks. You can check out a link below to them, and they have Marvel Crisis Protocol, they have Warhammer stuff, they have collectible card game stuff, so Magic the Gathering, Pokemon, all kinds of cool stuff. Also Funko Pops, you can check them all out. They ship anywhere in the United States, so they do not ship internationally for a lot of our international viewers. Sorry about that, but they do ship in the United States if you're interested in picking up your hobby stuff. I'm so sorry, guys. My nose gave a tickle, and now it's starting to make my eyes tear. So always seems to be the case when I start a stream. And my camera seems to be really iffy on the focusing. Why are you so iffy on the focusing? Alright, let's put it a little closer to me. Let's see if that solves the problem. I'm hoping it will. Oh. If I put it closer to me, then I lose the angle that I like. Alright, this is going to be interesting. We're going to try to work with it. I don't know why it... Oh, that'll just break the camera. I don't know why it's doing the shuffle focus, but we'll see if it continues. I do have to try to play around with my cameras. A task that I keep trying to do, but it's a lot of trial and error, and it's not working too well. But anyway, yes. So let us get started. Tonight, we're going to be focusing on very little final touches on Beta Ray Bill. Ulick, who we haven't finished. We're going to get him all settled and ready to go. And then Red Skull on the Tessera tank, which is a specialty unit. This can have its own scenario. It could be a unit. It can be a bunch of different things, a different play mode for the game. We're going to continue to work on these. I wanted to focus on some newer models since I know we've been painting a lot of older stuff, or even kind of unrelated stuff, meaning it's not Atomic Mass models, but they're kind of part of our custom campaign. Yeah, so without further ado, let's jump in and see what we can get to. Because like I said, I gave everybody the shuffle in moment. So I'll keep the tank there. We'll keep Ulick over there. So really quick for Beta Ray Bill, who we're going to focus on first. You'll see I started to do it already, but I wanted to really just emphasize with some edge highlighting the lightning bolt. It already did a pretty decent job. Where it's very, very convincing, but I want to just put a little bit more emphasis on some other parts of it, just so it has a little bit more life to it, and it looks like it is in fact lit a little bit. So I want the edges of it to still be very white, but I want to bring, I was looking at it and I'm like, oh, it's kind of uneven a little bit. Like, there are definitely areas that, like, it did a very nice job. But the lightning bolt itself is a little bit rounded in places. So I wanted to put some blue in places that I thought needed it a little bit more, and then kind of leave certain tips whiter so that it would create some nice contrast. And then this glacier blue, which is what we used originally, it works really well if you go back over it. Now again, for the lightning bolts that are closer to the actual weapon, I did want some of those tips to be very white. So I don't want it to be super blue, but I just wanted to bring some emphasis. So it looks like, you know, we have that traditional sort of crackling lightning. So you have that like nice break in the lightning. So it looks like it's got life to it. It's jumping around. I already did a lot of the edge highlighting on here. So you see, I just brought some white back in to do some really quick edge highlighting. But you can see what I'm doing now. I'm not going over everything. I'm just going over certain areas. Like, again, I want that tail end of the lightning to be very much white. But I'm just going to go into some of these recesses. Especially off of anything that I did the highlight off of. So you'll see if I just put in a little bit more, a lot of those top white areas will just look white. Because they're already white, because that's the cool thing about the contrast. It sets that way. So I'm just pooling a little bit with a little bit of a darker tone. Just in key areas. Again, I don't want to ruin a lot of the natural white highlights that happened. But now it just looks more crackly. It looks a lot more three-dimensional, and it'll darken some of those areas, so it'll emphasize where it naturally, like I said, kind of didn't pool. So those will become highlights, which is what I want them to become. Yeah, so see, now you have that nice crackling effect. Because when I looked at the lightning bolt, I'm like, oh, it's just very splotchy. It's very uneven. So let me do a little bit of quick work on that. And again, it's just very controlled lines. And again, you'll see how I'm just boxing it in. And this is for people that are interested. Like, this is very much what I would consider like a comic book approach to painting. So just trying to give that same kind of block shading that you'd see in comic books with nice shading so the character and the model looks like it's on par. That's it. That's all I'm going to do. I might do a little bit more edge highlighting, but I'm going to let that dry first so we can do a little bit more. So Beta Ray Bill got his little highlights. I'm going to put him, actually I'm going to put him way up just to let him dry. And as I think it was our death gentleman, he said what I loved, which was he said the magic words, which is if it looks good, or it might have been Vortexus who said it, I think, which is if it looks good from 3 feet away, then you've done your job, because you have to. I get obsessed with like right on top of it looking good, but I have to always remind myself that like 3 feet away is like your bread and butter. That's what you're looking for. And then as a reminder to anybody who's in the chat, come on, copy. That is a link to our Discord server. You definitely want to jump on there. We have a great time sharing work. There's also ways to contribute show ideas on there. If you guys have thoughts of like different models that you want to see reviewed or models you want to see us paint. I don't always take every suggestion because I do have to sort of pick and choose. But if everybody like really gave me a lot of feedback that they wanted to see, particularly a certain game or something, I'm willing to give it a shot. I will say that we're going to be a little bit more selective just because I want to like focus in on a few different games, but the good news is most of those are the major games, so there's not really going to be much loss from anybody who is looking to get into things. So all right, and as always, I always tell people that I love Twitch, but Twitch has failed me quite a bit on like letting me know who's watching and who isn't. So I may think you're not there because the Streamlabs I use and other like plugins have lately been like a little wonky. They don't always like reflect. So I've also had a little bit of trouble with because I do use some of the auto moderating features. I've actually had some of the moderating features like banned a lot of comments, which I'm not happy about because not that Twitch deliberately has a system where you get like banned on a comment and then you get like thrown off Twitch, but I don't like that it's like telling me or categorizing my viewers as like saying terrible things when a lot of times you guys are just having maybe a little bit more free speech, or you're saying stuff that, you know, isn't offensive. It's just you have a strong opinion about something and you're using maybe a sarcastic joke in there. So I'm going to do some Agrath's Earthshade. This is going to work very well on that yellow. So this is part of why I went for a little bit of a brighter yellow on him, because I had every intention of using the shader to go in and start although I think this Agrath's might be too dark. I was wondering if it would be too brown. I think it is. I wanted to use it just to bring out some of his like muscular tones, but it might be a little too too much. But yeah, guys, don't be shy. Let me know what's on your minds. Let's use a little bit of it in here. Again, the aggro was just to, which was to bring out, like I said, the muscular tones. And I thought what it would do is it would darken. It would start to darken a little bit the yellow. And I could start using it to sort of give a little bit of a gradation to areas, so it wasn't so so bright yellow. So I wanted to use it like underneath the shorts, so that kind of provided a natural shadow. Maybe start to apply the wash to subtler areas that are in shadow or under shadow. I feel like every time we start on time, it like freaks everybody out. I don't know if that's true, but it's what I feel. I feel like everybody's like assuming that we're going to start late. Because a lot of times I have been starting late. And then like the times I start very early, I feel like everybody kind of, rolls in a little bit later. Because they're like, oh man, he's like, I feel like they're starting. But I also think that that's another like, just downside to Twitch sometimes. I don't want to talk badly about Twitch, but like I feel like a lot of people comment to me often that like they don't like get our notifications very often that early. So like they would have been at the stream, but they don't get here until later, and like I think that that's happened more often than not, and it makes me a little annoyed, because as somebody who's like really trying to push and give you guys great content, to have the platform itself like not keep up with me is a little frustrating. But now I also know that a few of our like regular people are also like in different time zones, so I get that too, that everybody might be doing different things at different times, so like that's another piece to it. But so all I'm doing now is I'm just taking that shader and I'm just really kind of trying to create a gradient so that it's sort of, again, the yellow will start to become a highlight. For other stuff. So but yeah, I always feel like people are just like held up. So we're doing Ulik. For people that are not familiar with Ulik, Ulik is a Thor villain. I always say I believe he is a troll. Is Ulik's I think that's what he is supposed to be in the comic books. What we're using now is some shaders on him, just to kind of, I'm using this to bridge the gap with the fur, but also to bring out some of the muscle tones on him, so that he's not just so brightly yellow. Because if you look up Ulik and his character, it's a little bit of a mixed bag. Like, there are some renditions of him that are very much like I have him here, where he's like super yellow, and then there are some that he's like more flesh tone. He's like a normal. So I'm trying to kind of go in the middle. And then I saw some where he's got reddish hair. I saw some where he has brownish hair. So it's like, so I kind of tried to, in a way, not amalgam it, but I tried to kind of cover my bases and just make an interesting paint scheme that makes him look like the way that most of his renditions look. But just using a shader now, and what I'm doing with this too is just creating some natural like indent shadows, and like I said, just trying to create a little bit of a gradient so your eye kind of moves from a darker yellow to a yellowish brown to his fur, which is going to be a darker brown. So just trying to create that sense of like movement in him. But already he's looking super amazingly awesome. I love doing this. A lot of times I'll do the I like to do the muscles in like more of, I'll just take the color that's already there. But when it's something like this where it's like yellow and it's a little bit you know, brighter, it doesn't work the same way as some of the other colors do. So like having a wash in there to again give you this like sense of a gradient works a lot better. And you can see already like what I'm doing. I'm just going over and like creating that like darker gradient to the pants, and then what that does is it emphasizes the cuff of the pants, so your eye immediately is like ooh, and then you'll have your like highlights that work out as you paint more and more of the recess areas with the wash. And as I always say, guys, please do not hesitate to let us know who you are, what you're up to. If it's your first time here, don't be shy. And if you're curious overall what we're painting, this is for people that are not aware. This is Marvel Crisis Protocol. It's made by Atomic Mass Games. So if you were not aware, there is in fact a game out there where they did take Marvel characters, villains and bad guys, and made a small squad objective-based game for you to play with. It plays a lot like, if you're familiar with games like Kill Team or newly on the block Shatterpoint, which is the new Star Wars game made by the same exact company that makes this game. That'll be coming out very, very soon. Depending on the country you're in, it actually is already out. So if you are, for instance, I know we have a lot of folks from Australia that watch us. You guys actually already got it, which I'm super jealous of you guys for that. But you guys were lucky enough to actually get that game prior to where I am located, which is the US. So kudos to you guys. I don't know if Europe has gotten it as well. But and that kind of makes sense. I mean, although I don't know if it's I believe Atomic Mass Games is a company that is based in Europe. I don't think it's based in, I don't believe they're based in the United States, which is why they went for a European launch, because it's easier to distribute. But yeah, don't be a stranger on the chat. Post up comments, questions, or just say hi. I always say that you guys make this show 10 times better than me, because I try to supply fun facts and great stuff, but I feel like other people have better things to talk about than me, or better questions. And by all means, if you are a new painter or new to painting and have questions, I love that. I'm always a fan of people new to the hobby who want to just get their skills down, or they have questions, or if you are new to, Marvel Crisis Protocol, if you have questions on like what to buy, how to get started. I love all of those questions. Those are all great questions. And by no means are they questions that I will shy away from, nor do I think are bad questions. So, yeah, as I always say in my streams, I'm always down for any question. We're obviously painting Marvel Crisis Protocol, so I would say questions about that game or Marvel would be amazing. But if you have questions about other stuff, or you even play a different game, I know some people just watch different painting videos because they're just interested maybe in the model that they're painting or the technique that they're doing. So what I'm having trouble with right now is I think this brush I'm using might be too small, because it's not really picking up a lot of the wash. Because I'm trying to be like, yeah, this is not picking up any wash. Why is it not picking up any wash? Okay. I want to be very careful with how I use this wash. Although I just got one of the key things I wanted to do with it. The part I have to be careful with is I don't want it to turn into... There we go. I want it to just get a little bit of a boosted outline, but I don't want it to turn into like I completely like darken his face. I wanted his face to still have the lightness, but I wanted that ridge to be a little darker, just so that it looks a little bit better. Because you can see how the form is starting to take shape with the darker areas. So now that we're getting this nice brownish wash into the recesses, and we're getting that idea that like shadows, even the shadows underneath his arms, or a place where the light is not hitting, is going to be this wash. I think we're starting to see, yeah, there we go. I want to get some nice dark ideas here, but especially if it's like up against him like that. Again, I don't want it to turn brown, but I want there to be like, I want your eye to be like, oh, okay, that's like in shadow. So like this should be a different color. So that in that recess, you really get a sense of a shadow in there. This goes back to before when I always say that like I have to do this with the model assembled. I have massive respect all the time for people that can do assembly painting. I can't. I just get thrown off by it. I get why practically people want to do it, because it is true. Like, it is very hard sometimes to get underneath a model, in a wedge or crevice of a model. And I do tend to take longer to paint models because I do have to sometimes re-go over areas because I will accidentally, catch it with the brush. I'll accidentally have those moments, but I find that the thing that I miss when I don't do it is like when your light hits your model, there's natural shadows that you get that pick up. And I want to see those shadows. So for me, I like doing it this way. Now, what's crazy about him is he's got a lot of subtle little muscles. Not all of his muscles are like hitting you over the head going like, this is a muscle. So there is like a lot of little quote unquote touch-ups, but I already like how, again, we're getting more to a brownish tone for his skin. So now that yellow looks like an emphasis, it looks like a highlight rather than a really distracting yellow. Again, like I said, when looking at this model, there was a lot of back and forth I went through because there's just parts of it that look one way. Like just so many of the reference that I looked at, he's been very, very changed and looks different over the years. So I went a little bit more traditional with his paint job, but I've done that with most of the guys that I paint. I just go for the more traditional. Some people may like that, some people may not. They may be like, oh, well, I don't really like that, non-new characters. Now, and I have been trying to keep these characters to the comic book appearances of them, not the MCU appearances of them. Although, I'm sure there'll be people in comments who might say, well, if you look at like Captain America, or you look at some of the other models that Atomic Mass has done, they look very much like the movies. And my rebuttal to you on that is that you're right. They do look a lot like the movies because people always forget that the MCU universe is really the ultimate universe from the comic books. So it was actually that universe that they were pulling everything from. So that is why the MCU versions of like Captain America, not as much Spider-Man. Actually, no, I'll take that back. Actually, I can just do the whole thing because I'm going to do metal on top of that anyway. Spider-Man also is designed after his ultimate appearance, hence why he also was in high school, because the ultimate version of him was. Although Spider-Man's a whole other mixed bag, because Spider-Man, again, Spider-Man to me is one of the most brilliant things in the MCU, because if you really paid attention to all of his movies, and I say this because Into the Spider-Verse is coming soon, but if you paid attention to all of his movies, he actually they made him, he has a multi-origin story. So he starts off the story as Ultimate Spider-Man, and then he actually turns into regular Spider-Man, which I think is insane. But he does. He turns into like the regular Peter Parker Spider-Man in No Way Home. So it's like he does a reverse. It's like he does like a tail end origin story where he becomes both versions of Spider-Man, which I thought was pretty cool. I thought that was a really nice touch how they did that. Well, I mean, No Way Home is still just one of the most amazing movies of like just an insane movie, and the things that were pulled off in that movie, I still to this day are mesmerized, and yeah, I still to this day cannot believe how that movie did. Well, I mean, not even how the movie did, just like yeah, just it's just unbelievable. It's unreal. It's unreal how they brought all that together. They brought it all together, and then they also like um just using lead belcher for the metal elements. So I just did the Griffith Charger Gray on top of everything, and then I'm just bringing out that. I'm gonna do some rust effects, I think, on the grate and everything. For the base, I'm using a big brush, and I probably shouldn't. The nice thing about the lead belcher is it covers up really nicely. But yeah, so I just to this day am mesmerized that they brought everything they did together, but at the same time they actually gave more. They brought it together, but then also increased it and like brought closure, story, like two things that were not even in the MCU that are from a million years ago, and I was like, that's insane. So that whole idea of I think one of my buddies said it best, which was we were all just amazed that like it wasn't just because there's a lot of temptation to just do like cameos, but it wasn't. It was like it wasn't a cameo. It was like it was the plot. It was a focal plot of the movie, and you're like, I didn't expect that. I didn't expect it to be actually part of the film. I was like, wait, what? Like a substantial part of the film, and I'm like, that's crazy. And then, like I said, just the fact that you had character growth for characters that weren't in the MCU, were in these movies from a long time ago, but you like grew them as characters and gave them like, I mean, grew them as characters and quite frankly gave the open-ended tail end of like, could we be seeing these characters again? Like, that is a 100%. It's not a guarantee, but it's definitely a possibility. I'm not going to say that it is going to happen, but it's a possibility. It wasn't very much left open-ended, so. Which is why, for me, I mean, obviously Guardians is the next big Marvel movie, which comes out next month. Which obviously I am like super ready to go. But I'll be honest, I'm really excited about also Into the Spider-Verse, which I'm not gonna lie, I actually might be not. I don't think I'm more excited because Guardians looks amazing. Guardians looks like it's gonna be, which I wish I had some Guardians characters to paint. Unfortunately, early on, they released all the Guardians characters, and I bought most of them. I guess I didn't buy Drax and Gamora, so I could buy them and paint them, but I did buy Rocket and Groot early on. Um, because I love those characters, so I was like, oh, in this game, I definitely need those. I definitely need them in my life. I'm just gonna do some. I'm gonna do some of the. I haven't actually done this before. Maybe let's see what it looks like. the I can't say words. Space Wolf Gray, which is what I was just using. I always do that for like debris rocks because I like to have them have a contrast, so when you look at them on the base, you see that they're different. I'm gonna wait for that to dry in order to start doing that. And then I went with like a kind of a coppery, like I went for tarnished metal a lot with him, as if he's been doing this for a while and has tarnished his gauntlets and other stuff. I think I'm going to put just a little bit more of the wash on the red. I'm going to see what that looks like. I don't want to turn the red like super brown, but I'm just being like sparing with it because I want to provide some darker tone, but it didn't really bring out a lot more detail. That's what I thought it was going to do. But I have to remember it's brown, not black. The black is going to bring out more detail, so it might be better to emphasize that, but I will put it in maybe just key areas. Because all this is really going to do is just like it actually might darken some areas. Like that was a good use of it, because then it sort of went behind there, because I want to get folds in the fur. Like when you have fur on a character, like normally the fur, it'll have like breaks and lines, and it'll have, let's just see what it does. Let's just kind of play with it a little bit. Like I don't want to go crazy. I just wanted to like put some dark folds, so some of the ridges are just a little darker than the other brown. It's a little bit how they sculpted the fur. The fur is not like super textury. So again, guys, please let us know how you're doing tonight. Is there any cool stuff you've been working on? Is there cool models on your painting table? I always love finding out what everybody's kind of got in the shaft of projects. I know a lot of folks like me. Well, I shouldn't say like me, because I have a tendency to work on too many things at once, which is my downfall. I work on too many models, and then I kind of like not lose focus, but I definitely like have trouble. Oh, okay, that has no paint on it. That would be the reason why it dried out. And again, just like I did under there, I'm just gonna. You can just see how awesome that looks, because now that yellow is starting to become a highlight. So this technique that you're seeing, it's a painting technique, and what that painting technique is, it's so there's like two ways of thinking about when you paint. There's thinking about what you would call the positive space, And then there's also painting what you would call the negative space. This is true for drawing too. So what I'm doing is an example of negatives. So I'm painting the shadow. Well, negatives, technically this is negative space. So all the space around a figure is negative space. But, sorry, I'm going to retrace my step. There's a theory that you could do where you do everything dark and bring your highlights out. So essentially in the world of drawing, that would be erasing. Or what you do traditionally, which usually you're supposed to do with acrylic paints, or usually in painting you do the opposite. You'll do your darkest areas first and your lightest areas on top. But with contrast, you kind of want to think in reverse. So I usually do light areas and then I come in with a darker color on top of that light area to create my shadows. Because in the world of contrast paints, you cannot you cannot paint over dark paint with light paint, because in the world of contrast, the paint that you're using is transparent, so you're gonna see the paint. You're gonna see what's underneath it. So if you have a very dark color underneath it, the light color is not going to show up. It's part of the reason why you prime in white when you're painting in contrast versus painting in black, which is the traditional way that most people prime. Usually you would prime your models in the black. And when I say traditional, I'm just saying the way that most people learned how to paint when they were like painting, you know, D&D, potentially Warhammer models. Is that the only way to paint, and is that the only way to do it? No. Not at all. You can do painting in a lot of different ways, and some people prefer, you know, one method over another. But what I'm doing is that idea. So we did all of it in light tone, and now what I'm doing is I'm going in with the shader and I'm creating dark tones. So I'm essentially creating dark tones in different areas, so lots of the recesses. As we were talking about, anywhere that has like a slight muscle or area, I'm giving it a little bit of a hit with this. I was doing some of the fur with it to make different transitions and styling. But what you should start to see, and I think it already is coming through very loud and clear, is that he now has a lot of muscle definition, and there's a lot of really great shadows in here. And also, what should start to be very apparent is, as I was saying before, I'm trying to go for like transitional colors. So the idea of creating gradients or transitional colors, so your eye transitions from the fur elements, as we see here, to those hand elements. And what this should start to create is a really big, good sense of realism. So he looks alive. He looks like he's alive, animated, and everything we're doing is emphasizing that that core idea. Now it's tricky because you do definitely want to create. There we go. That's the kind of line I'm trying to create, and I'm deliberately trying to do that off of some of the actual fur. so that it like looks like it emphasizes how it's coming off of his coming through. This is great. Yeah, he looks so much more alive now. What do you guys think? Are we hitting the right nodes? Do you feel like that's like kind of making him a little bit more together? Do you dislike? Do you like? I really like Ulick. I think he came out very, very cool. We still have to do some effects and stuff. So I definitely have to do some things on the base. I'm going to let the top dry a little bit. But he is pretty much on the way to being done. Or what I would consider done. So little tiny downstairs base details. I always do this for grates. I just take the null oil and fill in the grate lines with black. I think it's a really cool touch. It'll make it look like a city grate because it's got black in it. As I always say at this point in a model, I always tell people, like, some people out there might say to themselves, especially if they're new to this whole thing, that, that's kind of obsessive. That's kind of you're doing this crazy amount of detail on all of your models. Like, how do you ever get all your models painted or done? Like, I'm struggling just to get the figure done. And the answer to that is, it's just, I push my models a lot on the paint side. Some of it is also because at this point or stage in my painting, I do paint pretty fast. So even with taking these like small details, I mean, an average figure, even like something like this, like Ulick, within 2 hours, I'll have it done. And the other thing I always tell people about, particularly the Marvel Crisis Protocol game, which is part of the reasons I really like it, is because, one, it's a cost-effective game. So for 30, 40 bucks, I mean, basically for $60, you buy 2 different boxes, although now they have team boxes, so you just buy one of those. But for like 60 bucks, you can get a squad that you can play with. But what I love about this game is all the models are like, they're all hero shots. They're all unique characters. So you can get a squad pretty cheap, but then you can also take the time to paint your squad how you see fit. And I love that. And so, for people that are learning how to paint, games like this are really great because you can, take that time on that first model you paint because A, you're probably playing a faction or people that you like. Now I'm going to do some of the Griffin Hound Orange to make like a rusting effect on the manhole cover. I've been doing this and it's been awesome. Just using the contrast paint, and you literally just go over the metallic with it, and you can create what I would say looks like a pretty convincing rust effect. If you want to make like a rusty metal drain, which is pretty cool. Now I'm going to let that dry, and then I'm going to do some null oil on top of it, and you guys will see exactly how cool that'll look. So you're going to go to the drying land. Ooh, I like this. We're knocking them out. We're knocking them out left and right. This is great. Ulick looks top notch. We're going to do a little bit to his base just to make it look even better. All right, so now let's get back to this wonderful guy. So what's crazy about this model is it has no base. So we started painting this. This is again the Red Skull on Tesseract tank. What's cool about this kit is you could either make it just a tank, so just a regular Hydra tank. You could do it with Red Skull coming out of it, which changes its stats. It has like special rules to play. So this model would be similar to models like Dormammu, Thanos. I'm trying to think. Dormammu, Thanos. I think those were the only other two that they did that like have different rule. No, not the Sentinels, because the Sentinels they have rules for themselves. But they don't have like a different play mode. Those three models would be the ones that have like different play modes, where you can either play them as units or they have like scenario play that goes with them. It should be mentioned that also, Marvel Crisis Protocol does have play events. I don't know many stores. So although the store, and I do want to shout them out again, our sponsor for this video, Undiscovered Realms, even though they do sell Marvel Crisis Protocol, there hasn't really been play events there that are like standard to Marvel Crisis Protocol. So I don't know many stores like in my area that do them. And I'm just gonna do some metal on these little the little railing guys. Just gonna metal on the whole thing, and then I was gonna do them in a different tone, but I think we're just gonna use Leadbelcher for the whole thing. But yeah, so no one's done those events, but I was actually lucky enough that the store that I get all my stuff from was able to get me, actually get me a copy of them, so that maybe eventually one day we could do events. But with everybody kind of bouncing back from COVID, it's been a slightly uphill battle, and there's a lot of different reasons as to the why for that. Some of it is just in a lot of areas and communities that played a lot of these games, the reality is that just a lot of people either haven't kept up with them or kind of lost focus on them a little bit. People in my area still play Warhammer and still play like Marvel Crisis Protocol, but some of them found other areas to do so. Myself included, I bought a gaming table. I have it in my house, so obviously for me, a lot of the reasons I bought a gaming table was also because my eventual goal was to do battle reports for you guys. But then, again, as I'm saying about COVID, COVID kind of hit, and I'm sure I'm not saying something that's not familiar to a lot of you out there, but a lot of people's situations changed. They had to move away for business reasons. They had to take on different jobs. So that happened to a lot of people I know. Myself included. So yeah, so it's like very, very interesting that like people changed up how they were doing things. So that put a little bit of a damper on our plans on the channel, because a lot of the things I had planned had to be put on the back burner because those people were just not here. Anymore. So that sort of sucked. You know, maybe one day we'll have a resurgence of folks, but for right now, everybody's kind of focusing on kind of focusing on their own thing. So, which I totally respect. So I'm using Blood Angel Red for the Hydra symbol. You know, those not so nice guys from the comic books. Which it should be interesting, although, you know, if we're talking about MCU specifically, I think Hydra has sort of played its role. So I don't know if we'll be seeing, although never say never, they could. There's many ways to do a Hydra resurgence. To say, if they want to make fans really, really mad in the MCU universe, since the multiverse is what we are all about, and oh no, I could probably work that in. And since the multiverse is what we're all working towards here, they could go really nuts, and they could start bringing in alternates. Alternate versions of things. And if they really, really wanted to pump the fans in a way that would like make them angry, which I doubt that they would do it, they could very easily, which would be a terrible way to bring Chris Evans back, but they could do the Hydra version of Captain America, which everybody hated. Everybody got so mad when they did that. The Secret Empire story. Everybody was livid about that. Everybody was so mad. You know, and I was gonna say for myself, I wasn't really mad because I knew. I said the thing that I always say, which is they're comic books. Like, yeah, so they're making him a Hydra agent in this reality, but it's comic book. They're not gonna keep Captain America as a bad guy. They're going to do it for whatever time the story is. And then they're going to have some mechanic or some way that, you know, some way that Captain America does not stay an evil character. Yeah, it's same thing with Superior Spider-Man. Everybody got mad at Superior Spider-Man. Everyone got mad. They were like, how dare Dan Slott's kill Peter Parker, and it got like so heated to the point where like he was which is, again, I say this with I say this, but it's crazy. But people were like sending him legit death threats. Like, which is, for the record, insane. Like, again, it's a comic book. You've been reading comic books, and this is for people that are like huge fans of Spider-Man, and I'm like, I always said the same thing. I'm like, you've been reading comic books for your entire life. Please tell me that you don't think that this is the end of the story, or that they're really gonna do this. Like, that's the idea. It's a story. It's them trying to tell a different story and an idea, but it's a comic book. Any character that they quote unquote kill in any story, or quote unquote goes away, or quote unquote something happens, it's never a goodbye, a permanent goodbye. It's never a permanent goodbye. Are there times where are there times where characters are killed, but then take their sweet time to come back? Absolutely. Does that happen? Like, can they shelve a character for many, many years? Absolutely they can. But I'll tell you this. It's not going to be Peter Parker. Peter Parker and Spider-Man are not the types of characters that you will shelve. Same thing with Captain America. Like, you won't shelve Captain America. I mean, now we did get different versions of Captain America, and we did get different versions of Thor, although they were still alive. I'm gonna have to do some white touch-ups. Damn it. The reason why I have to do white touch-ups is that I'm not keeping the paint wet enough. I'm letting it kind of hit. Yeah, so I definitely am gonna have to do some touch-ups. The easier way to do this is if you keep your paint a little on the wet side, then when you touch the brush, it'll just fill the area. The problem with this brush is also that this brush, the bristles. Oh, that was great what I just did. I just took a bunch of red and just threw it down. That's great. Alright, well, definitely going to have to do a touch-up now. Alright, well, so I'm going to have to do touch-ups. Let's just get the red paint in there. I mean, I could also like redo this and just like say it's blood on the side of the tank, but I don't want to do that. This blood, my Blood Angel red is like really low, so I'm like scraping paint from the bottom of it, which is not the way you want to use that pod. But I can't get more Blood Angel red. It's actually a really hard color to find right now, so I have to like improvise a little bit. Oh, it's still wet. Oh. That was beautiful. Why did I do that? It's funny, when I put the gray on top of that, it'll cover it up. Alright, that one I actually did pretty well. There's little bits of touch-up I'll have to do, but nothing too crazy. This one I really messed up. And I say really messed up, but I didn't really mess it up. And I was going to say, guys, as always, if you have any questions, comments, concerns, please let us know. I always say it, my wonderful screen doesn't always tell me when you guys are live with me or not. So if you have been commenting but I haven't been seeing it, please let me know. Alright, so I'm going to let that dry for all of my mistakes. I don't think there are any more Hydra symbols on this tank. Well, there should be a big one on the back of the door. Did I call it or did I not call it? Like, I remember there was one more. Alright, so I'm going to hold off doing that one. Because maybe I'll leave that one non-red Hydra. Alright, now what do I want to do for these lights? I feel like I want to do the lights. Oh, I forgot to put that light panel in. That sucks. I have no clue where that light panel is. Alright, my tank's going to have a defect. Fuck. Alright. I feel like I want to use this asthmatic blue. And I feel like I want to make the big light the blue. And I'm going to make the other lights orange, I think. So I'm just going to paint in the front of the lights. Because the rest of the light's going to be the Space Wolf gray. Because I want to make the lights really stand out. So there's a good level of contrast between the colors and the light. Okay. Or maybe we'll should we make them yellow? Those lights? Maybe we'll make them yellow. Now I'm thinking about it more. I want to start pulling out all the mechanical stuff, and then we'll start working on the top, which the top, I deliberately left it not attached so I can magnetize it. Because I want to do the tank like when it's done. like with explosions and stuff. I want to make like terrain explosions for tanks. Part of this is also because I'll show you guys why in a minute. Because you'll see on the bottom there's a big 4. Because this tank is actually something that a character can pick up. So you can actually pick this tank up and throw it at someone. Which is one of my favorite parts of this game. I love it so much for that. I love that the game has like mechanics for terrain and things to hit each other and to be used with your superpowers. It really is a very cool mechanic that they have. Alright. Oh, man. And if you guys like what you've been seeing, you can also, of course, sign up for notifications, follow the channel. It helps us greatly when you do that. There's also my website and my indie comic Patreon, which all of that is going to start to get updated more regularly. I'm sorry for anyone who was a Patreon member and like just I didn't have any content up there for you. It just got really busy, and I apologize. I have been working diligently on it, and more stuff has to go up there, so there's going to be a more routine schedule for it. So here, just to make our lives a little bit easier, I'm actually going to remove the top part of the tank. That'll also help me to get to all of this other stuff, so we can continue to paint what we see, and just get a lot of the other areas painted. Alright, so it looks like we have maybe more. Are they lights? Not lights? I don't know. Alright, so I painted this silver. I don't know, I feel like some of this should be painted different colors. I don't know why, but... Again, I don't have the reference for the tank, but... I'm going to sort of riff and go off of what I want, because... So I think just to match the rest of it, because I always say this when you're painting something that's mechanical, again, if you think about anything, like any vehicle, whether it's a tank or whether it's any vehicle, especially a vehicle that's like a war vehicle, you know, they're going to be made the same. So, meaning, usually, I mean, in this case, this is a unique tank, because this is like, essentially, this is in the first Captain America movie in the MCU. You start to learn about, you know, Red Skull is like making or trying to make essentially different weapons using the Tesseract energy. This is one of those weapons he made, which is. I'm just looking at aesthetics right now. I'm not going to go through and do all those bolts. I will eventually do all the bolts with the lead belcher because they're going to look good. But that's like a huge detail, and I'm not. I want to get broader strokes done. I think I'm going to do these in a green. Yeah, let's do it in this. Kind of like them as a green, like but this is a Hydra tank. Would they be green then? Oh yeah, green Hydra. Duh. Yes, they would. I'm like, what would Hydra use green? Yes, Hydra would use green. Their agents' uniforms are green. Sorry guys, I swear that I'm like coherent most of the time. My brain just like went into a place that was like, my brain definitely just cried out like, you've read comic books, you remember what. Please remember what Hydra agents wear. Typically from the comic books. Like, please remember characters like Lady Hydra and all the characters who normally in the comic books are dressed in green. Including Red Skull when you first meet him. Although lately he looks... Red Skull has changed more into the aesthetic of, you know... Because, you know... If you all out there weren't aware... basically Hydra was Marvel's way of telling stories about a certain group without saying their name and without having commentary around that period of time. At least later on. Not at first, because at first Captain America definitely did fight the traditional, you know, World War issues. But yeah, Hydra was created after that as a way to have, you know, kind of a group with some of the same similar ideals as that terrible group, but not having, you know, as a way to not obviously have artists and people have to draw symbols that would be bad for a lot of people because of all the terrible things that happen, which I think is obviously totally makes sense, and I'm happy that Marvel had the, you know, had the one for all to be like, hey, this is probably not a good idea. We should not do this. You know. So it was I think a very smart move and very sensitive of them to do that. And it created a bunch of really cool characters because obviously then they could completely redesign that but still have some of the core nods, so you could be like, okay, well, the people who potentially might have been that would also gravitate to this other organization after that was over. So that was always an interesting little tidbit about it. All right, I am losing where I'm going. Where are we now on time? Okay, we've almost had an hour and a half, so I might. I mean, we got a lot done, so I'm happy with the progress, but I know I've gone like back and forth on this tank so many times. This is part of why these tank like models like this that are like very, very specific are like really hard for me. I always like, not that I get bogged down by mechanics, because I do like painting mechanical things, but I don't know, I just get like super obsessed and I don't know, I don't want to say that I doubt my ability to paint these, but I just always like have fear that they're not going to look good. And they always do. I kind of psych myself out, I think, a little bit. Now, reality time. Are contrast paints great to paint this? They are and they're not. So obviously you can see, you know, one of the things that I'm fighting a lot here is there's a lot of just brush strokey stuff all over the place. So I'm going to have to figure this out. I think I was showing, was it in here? No, I think it's on the other side. Yeah, I started to show the technique of how I do this, which is I start layering, like, I start making the panels look worn. And the way that I do that is I'll start to, like, go over the panels. So that I'm creating, like, battle panels out of them. Which, while I'm here, I might as well just redo that. So what I'll start to do is I'll start to like almost highlight the edges. So then what it does is it makes it look like a scuffy tank. I swear to God, if I keep touching that back panel. So it's I sort of blend the panels is what I'm doing. What I'm doing here is I'm just creating a border or an outline. So I'm just oversaturating that divot. So that'll bring emphasis to that. But yeah, so what I just start to do is I start to build in like edging on the panels, and then what that starts to build is it starts to build like a visual that, like, oh, okay, this is intentional. Is that still okay? Okay. I swear to God, guys, I know this is how I know I'm getting tired. When the model starts flying out of my hand. Part of it is also I'm painting too many sides of this. So I'm touching too much stuff. Which I have a tendency to do that, especially with mechanicals. Because I'll start to do something and I'll be like, oh, I've done it on one side. Let me do it on the other side. Because I like to try to keep everything obviously symmetrical. Yeah, so you do this kind of and then what that starts to do is just create a texturing so it looks intentional. It looks like your tank was supposed to look like that. Now, another thing you could do, which I tend to find works really well, is also just going over, just going back over the panels with a larger brush. So I'll show you what I mean by that. If you just go over them and you go into it, you go in a different direction than you intended normally, that usually works too. So I'll show you what I mean. The key is just to not go back over anything. So what do I mean by that? Well, it means you want to try to not you have to just keep going in one direction and just don't go back over it. So if you go in the opposite direction that you went, it will hide your it'll hide some of your paint strokes. It won't do a great job, but it'll do a pretty good job. So see how now that looks a lot better. Because now the brush strokes don't look as bad as they did. And right, that's it. You don't go back over it. You have to just go over areas. You have to just be consistent in your lines. And then, again, doesn't look great, but it looks a lot better than it did a minute ago. The reality is what makes this always look better is it really should have been spray painted. So this is where the person who spray paints their tank is going to have a much more cohesive nice looking tank, because remember how I was saying go the opposite way. This is what I meant by it. What I'm doing here is I'm just making a stronger paint. I'm making a stronger color palette for this, because I really want that color to be nice and saturated. I'm gonna have to do the same thing on the other side, because now the colors look uneven. And then all those little like rings and stuff, I'll come back for those. But when I had first done this tank, I was a little on the tired side, so I did not give it the... I'm gonna have to come back with the silver on that side anyway. I'm gonna do the same thing on this side, but yeah, it's always gonna look splotchy because of the way it dries. So what I'm trying to do is a pat method. And this is going to be to try to minimize. So again, I'm going across I'm going the opposite way that I went the last time. And the process, or the thought process, is I'm trying to pat and stroke this so that when it dries, we get a little bit more of an even coverage. So it just looks like dried gun shadow. So you can see already that we're not getting a perfect on this side, but we're getting a little bit closer to at least the metal, because it's still pooling and it's still making, because that's what it does. It wants to pool to create an edge. But I find, again, when you're doing mechanics, this idea of just oversaturating works really, really well. And again, I'm just pulling it out, and I'm just trying to go against the grain of what I did previously. Because now I had a drip, so I have to take that drip and I have to evenly distribute it amongst all of the areas that are there with this like padding method. But yeah, if you do this oversaturating method, I find it works really well to hide a lot of your paint strokes. So you have a little less paint strokiness in there if you're trying to just use the contrast. And you can kind of see, I don't want to move it around too much. So that's why I'm keeping it on the ground. And I'm literally doing it armor panel by armor panel. Oh, don't do that. Don't do any strokes. And all I'm doing is just I'm taking the paint and I'm just going up. In this case, I'm doing a diagonal one. But I'm not going back over any area. So I'm just going to try and pray and hope that I can get something that looks halfway decent. It's going to make those sides darker anyway, which I kind of wanted them to be darker, so. So you can start to see already how it's giving us a little bit more uniformed it's giving us a little bit more uniformed a uniform feel. Again, for Texas, how are you? Hail Hydra. That's correct. So, just trying to get. So that's looking a lot better. And like I said, it's looking like it's more uniformed. We're seeing a little less of the paint strokes, which are great. I'm gonna let that dry because I don't want it to move around too much. But you know, we're starting to get the beginnings of I know I'm not on camera today. I'm like having a little bit of a moment. Now, what I want to do is, where are we at time-wise? I could go a little bit longer. How's it going, Vortexus? What are you working on? Same stuff or new stuff? I feel like Vortexus was streaming. Which is why we're just popping in to say hi. Gotta be up extra early. Was picked for a focus group that gonna pay me $350 in one day. Ooh, nice. Very, very cool. Well, that's cool. I wish I had time for focus groups. Or they're going to give me $200 and the full speed paint set. Oh. Oh, I get it, because you're gonna buy the paint set with the money you get from it. It took me a minute to get that. That's awesome. I'm like, what? I'm like, you're doing a focus group for paint sets? Oh, that's true. Yes, Total War is definitely on my list of things I have to do this week. So we will be playing Total War on the channel. I just had to been trying to get this Patreon up and running. So that's been eating up a lot of my time. Sorry that we're the tank. What was it? I like the twists from what I've seen. Seem only to speak. I think that's canon, isn't it? Yeah, I thought so. But yeah, we'll definitely be playing that. I just haven't gotten around to downloading the game on Steam. Because like I said, I had so many other things which have been devoting my time. Lots of different things. Even some more traction on, I know I've talked about it here, and that's part of what our new Patreon is going to be helping with. But potentially opening a gaming store, which if that actually happens, that'd be really cool. It would obviously make my ability to get really cool stuff to review and paint and do our videos even cooler. Unfortunately, I mean, for folks in Texas, I probably could ship there, but I would not be able to ship for some of our international folks, but yeah, all of that stuff is starting to come into focus a lot faster than I thought so. So we just got a lot going on. All right, let's get that Glacier Blue in there, which I'm using for my Tesseract glow, which is not what Glacier Blue is supposed to be used for, but I'm going to do it anyway because it looks, to me, very much like the Tesseract color. Since this tank is powered by the Tesseracts. Which I feel like is a missed opportunity on the model, because you get him, like, obviously directing the tank. But I feel like he should be holding the Tesseract. But the other model that comes with the starter set, he does. But I'm just trying to get the little final touches, because right now the sides of the tank are wet, so that's why I do apologize to anybody watching. I'm not holding the tank up. That's part of why I can't. I'm trying to tilt it where I can, but lots of it is still wet because I redid those side areas. Really trying to lather on that Glacier. Glacier seems to be a color that you kind of get on there, but then you do have to like go back over it. So I let it dry, and then I usually give it a second coat. It looks great when it's on there, but because I think I've said it before, it's meant to be like an overlay color. You're not really supposed to use it as a primary painting color, but I have been, just because I'm having fun with it. It looks fairly good when it's on there, but it does take a few coats. What I should have done, which I've learned helps the color a little bit more, is I should have pre-did that with the Apothecary White, which is that gray, and then that would have probably made it a little bit better. But alright, so those are going to be silver elements. Alright, I think the tank is going to have to dry. I'm going to bring this back because I can put a little bit more work into the base, and then we'll probably end on this. Oh, because we're almost at 2 hours. Oh, Lord. Ow. I niche on my foot. Alright, let's see what we got. So yeah, Ulick, we wrapped up tonight pretty much. I'm just going to do a little bit of work on his base. But you guys can see where he got to. Again, that wash that we used to get his muscles kind of all together really worked out well. I really like how he turned out. I'm just going to use some Null Oil for some key details on the base. Specifically where I want to put the Null Oil is going to be on the outside of the manhole cover. The inside rim. Yeah, it takes, if you kept up with the new X-Men story, I'm loving they brought back 80s bloodthirsty Sabretooth. Don't get me wrong, I liked morally flipped good Sabretooth, but he was always a much more, yep, I agree. He was a good villain. I have been partially keeping up with them. I don't know if you saw the announcement, but they actually just announced that Nightcrawler is going to be the next Superior Spider-Man. So imagine that world where Nightcrawler becomes Spider-Man, because that's going to happen. They just announced it. I'm sure if you're reading the comic books, there might be some signs pointing is what I meant to say, to that. But I am super excited. I already told my local comic shop that I 100% like need that book now. How so? Is Doc Ock going to take over Nightcrawler's body? I have no clue. I saw a graphic, and it is Nightcrawler wearing a Spider-Man costume. I'm gonna say probably it's an alternative universe. I miss Superior Iron Man. They just had waved him away after. Yes, he did make an excellent villain. Yeah, my guess is probably he's an alternate dimension Spider-Man. I don't think he's, because that would make sense, because with Into the Spider-Verse coming, they're probably going to do some story or book that has alternate Spider-Man in it, because they, you know, Marvel tends to do that. If the movies are going in a certain direction, they'll have comics kind of follow suit. That's a very, very much a Marvel thing. Alright, so what I'm doing now is I'm just adding some Null Oil to the grates, which also makes it look... I do this because it makes it look like there's water damage by the grate, too, because it's a little bit more. And you can see that orange on the grate really did work well to give us that rust effect. So again, that's just... I wonder, do you think every time Spider-Man gets rebooted, if random street thugs are like Uncle Ben's back on the menu, boys? That's true. I never thought of it like that. I never thought of it in that way, in that term. Again, I'm not sure if it's a reboot of Spider-Man. I think, like I was saying, my guess is that maybe, I mean, again, because if you think of Nightcrawler, so Nightcrawler essentially travels through another dimension, so it would not be too hard to get a storyline where you know, where an alternate version of him ends up in our dimension. That's probably pretty easy. And knowing Marvel, it'll probably be tied to whatever, like, big events going on, and there'll be, like, an aftermath thing. I did like that one alternate universe Spider-Man who didn't lose Uncle Ben and becomes that world's ultimate hero, but he's secretly killing and absorbing the power of other Yep. Which I feel, yeah, maybe that might be Into the Spider-Verse. You never know if that's going to play a role into... be interesting if that was actually in that movie. I still think what's going to end up happening is that he just thinks... I feel like he's trapping all the Spider-Man in an alternate dimension because they think Spider-Man's the one that, like... I'm telling you guys, I've said it multiple times in our videos. I still think Into the Spider-Verse is going to be like all hell breaks loose, and I think it's going to be that Miles... I really do think it's going to be Miles' induction into the MCU. I really, really think that's what's going to happen. I think this is going to be the moment. Because I think it's going to be a situation where... I don't know, I feel like something with an incursion. I feel like it's going to get back to the multiverse. Alright. I'm just going to do some Null Oil on these gauntlets. So they look both old and they look identified, and then I think I'm done. I don't think there's anything else I want to do to Ulick. I think Ulick is a very... Oh, wait. I saw one last thing I want to do to him. Well, actually, a couple things. I want to some null oil inside of the hand. I'm going to do the same thing over here. I'm going to do the same thing on the other side. Still hoping somehow we get good Emperor Doom in the MCU. I doubt it, but when eventually they have to a Doom... I don't think you're going to get good Doom. I think you're going to get regular Doom. I think you're going to get both, to be honest. So I think you will obviously get Doctor Doom before you get... I think you're going to get Doctor Doom before you get good Doom. Oh, God Emperor Doom. Yeah, I'm sorry. Did I say... Oh, God Emperor. I read it wrong. And I didn't mean... Well, there have been stories where there's alternate good versions of him. But I think you will get God Doom. But you will first get the White Outfit Doom. Yep, I know, from Secret Wars. Which was precursored by Battleworld, which they are doing Battleworld. They said it. So Battleworld is where we're going. So you will get God Doom, I think. Because Doctor Doom is going to be introduced. Correct. But my point that I'm making is that you're going to get God Doom because they're going to introduce regular Doctor Doom when they do the Fantastic Four movie, but they're leading towards Battleworld. So the idea of this phase is we get introduced to the multiverse, and they're going to have... That's why I think you're going to get people like... We already got America Chavez. I think you're going to get Miles in the movies. You're going to get everybody who's like interdimensional travelers who get lost in our world from other dimensions, because they all have those stories, because Miles is supposed to be from another dimension where they don't have a Spider-Man. So wouldn't surprise me if they flip the main bad guy in the current phase due to Kang's actor being in hot water. Possibly. It's very possible. They could also recast Kang. They've done it before. They're not... Marvel's not against recasting people. They did it with Rhodey. They've done it with... I mean, okay, they've never done it with a major villain. I guess you could quote-unquote say they have, because you saw Thanos, but you didn't hear him talk, and they... Yeah, but if they recast Kang, then Black Panther fans are going to be like, what the fuck gives us... Well, but that's what I mean by recasting. They could recast it into a different actor. I think Marvel would do that before they would just like scrap Kang, because they can't scrap Kang. So they're more likely to recast Kang than they would to scrap him. And then what you could say in a story plot way is he changed his appearance because the heroes started to get onto him, or all of the other Kangs decided to change their appearance. I mean, there's a thousand ways to story that out to be like, I look different now. I do think we will see Robert Downey Jr. back as Iron Man due to the multiverse stuff eventually. Oh yeah, you're gonna see every one of them come back. You're gonna see Cap come back. You're gonna see all of them come back, because that's the whole point of the multiverse. I mean, technically, Cap can always come back because they've done that storyline. I've told people that multiple times. They've done Old Man Cap. There was a story. I mean, it was a Deadpool story, and it was like comedic, but they've had Old Man Cap, because remember, even him as like an 80-year-old guy, he's still stronger than anyone else. So he can come back as Old Man Cap, and he can still fight people and throw down. And in the Illuminati universe from Doctor Strange, Supreme Baron Mordo and the Ultrons are still alive. Correct. Yeah, you can have a bunch of other stuff happen. I mean, I specifically what's going to happen in Doctor Strange 3 is going to be that's going to be all about the first Doctor Strange movie. So what they're going to do with Doctor Strange is they're going to do a typical like trilogy where you go back to the first movie because the incursion that she's talking about is him with Dormammu. He went into Dormammu's universe and created a time loop. So it's actually brilliant because it's taking what we know about the multiverse now and applying it. Because remember, he already traveled through the multiverse. We just didn't think of it as the multiverse then because technically Dormammu's universe is part of the multiverse. So he created an incursion in Dormammu's universe. So that's why she came to get him because she's the daughter of Dormammu. How badass would it be if X-Men intro the MCU is Days of Future Past? They'd be awesome, and it fits the time travel stuff. I mean, a retelling of it, not a Wolverine movie in disguise. Yeah, so there's a couple of different things you could do with that. They could do X-Men's Future Past, and what they could also blend that with is the storyline where the teenage versions of the X-Men get trapped in our time frame. So what they could do, which this would be super cool, and maybe this is why Quicksilver got a reprieve in the WandaVision series, but it would be interesting if they took the First Class cast and made them the X-Men of this universe, and that's the way that they get there, by doing a time jump or them getting stuck through time. So maybe we meet older versions of the X-Men. I did like that story. It was a creative way to reset the main X-Men squad, especially when they could come back because the universe had changed too much. Right. So I think that would be an interesting way. So that actually, to me, would be a way. And again, if No Way Home taught us anything about like using alternate movies and other stuff, I think that's actually a way to get everyone happy. So the people who like the original X-Men movies and the people who like the First Class movies, you get them all to show up in their movie. So it's kind of another homage to all of this stuff. But we then get the resetted X-Men, which is the X-Men First Class X-Men, and they carry on to become different MCU X-Men. It would also put us in line to get Miles, to get it would actually get us everyone for Champions. So Young Avengers, we already know is probably going to happen. Champions would be another team that they could do because they almost have all the members for it. The only person they're missing is Vision's daughter. Oh, a cinematic version of Fatal Attraction would be fun. What? Oh, like Fatal Attraction from the you're talking about from the comic books. I'm like, Fatal. I'm like, what? I'm like, what is happening? But I think that would be something that would be interesting if they did something like that. Because I think then you could get Champions. Because they've already mentioned Totally Awesome, Fatal Attraction, the X-Men story where Magneto and the Brotherhood make their last stand on Asteroid M Avalon. Yep. Wolverine gets his metal ripped out. Yep, that's when Magneto rips out his skeleton. Correct. Yeah, no, that's a very cool story. So they could do that. It's going to be interesting. It's going to be very interesting to see where they're going to go with it. And it'd be actually interesting if they did it where they ripped out the older Wolverine skeleton. Oh, no, I guess they couldn't. Right? Because in the Wolverine movie, he lost his adamantium skeleton. Right? Is that the plot of that movie? I completely forgot, with the terrible Silver Samurai in it. I think, right? Because he took all of his adamantium out to make that. So Wolverine was back to bone claws by the end of the movie, and then we got that amazing scene, which I haven't watched that scene in a long time, that extra credit scene where Magneto and, well, the story had some twists and turns, like Les just joining the Brotherhood after the sister died. Correct. But that movie had that crazy scene where Professor X and Magneto show up in the airport, which if that ever happened, that would have been, I don't know where we were going. Oh wait, I do know where we were going. We went to that was Futures Past. That's where we were going. Where we were going was that was the link scene to link you to that movie, so that you knew that they were all working together. So in the future, when you saw them all together, Wolverine could travel to the past. But anyway, it would be interesting if, yeah, well, the whole thing's gonna be interesting because Deadpool 3 is also another factor in all of this, because it's got Hugh Jackman in it and it's got Wolverine in it. So I did like Magneto's last stand in the version of Days of Future Past, where he just wrecked shop on a ton of Sentinels. I thought it was pretty cool too. The newer X-Men movies, like X-Men First Class, Days of Future Past, they weren't terrible. They weren't like great, but they weren't terrible. They were like much better than what we had previously had. But they weren't great. Now, Apocalypse, that was bad. That was terrible. that was real bad. But yeah, that was just a horrible movie. That was so bad. It was so misdone. I'm super stoked to, like, if we get to that level in the MCU, like, to get Apocalypse, like proper Apocalypse, unbelievable. But yeah, that was crap on a crap cracker. It really was done terribly. All right, cool. Well, I think we're gonna call it quits for today. We're seeing the tank is looking pretty good. I'm gonna have to do a little bit more, as we talked about, work on the panels just to make it look a little less. I think Mister would make a great villain. Oh, excuse me. Even. Yep. I would say that those would be cool. Those would be cool. A cool thing. So yeah. So we worked a lot on the tank. So we got a lot more of the details done. We started to really form out our main color schemes. It's starting to look good. Obviously, we have the whole top portion of the tank to still go. Again, I'm leaving that separate because I do want to magnetize it, so you can actually point the tank. I love doing that with models that are tanks, so the turret's actually pointable. I mean, technically, I could just leave it the way it is, but I don't want it to be soldered down. I want it to be able to move, so it can point at the people it's targeting, instead of just doing the traditional. I like having more fun on my gaming table. So this is where we got to on the tank. A little bit more detail. Did a lot of the insignias and that kind of stuff. Ulick got the biggest treatment tonight. Best roast of Tony Stark. I forgot the story, but they got world peace when using his god suit. He makes everyone as smart as him, and when they check with Reed Richards to confirm, he's like, yeah, I feel a lot dumber. Correct. I know what you're talking about. That's pretty funny. So Ulick got the biggest attention in that we finished him. So Ulick is definitely done. I love how this came out. It's so vibrant. It's so ready to go. Like I said, it's a mixture of kind of the two different Ulix that you see. Vortexus, you don't think he looks amazing? I think he looks pretty amazing. Vortexus only gave us a solid. He looks solid. No, I know that. I know that means that Vortexus thinks it looks good. I'm just busting his chops a little bit. So we got that. Yeah, I'm jumping off now too. And then the only other thing we did was Beta Ray Bill. I went back and did some more lightning. So we put some highlights on the lightning, put some darker blues on it. So it looks a little bit more vibrant, more ready to go. But I'm very happy with the way Beta Ray has come. So we did achieve quite a bit tonight. Finishing another model. I actually took inventory of all my Marvel Crisis models, and it was crazy how many of them I have. But I made sure they're all safe and started teaming them up and forming them up into squads so we can start building what our storyline for our multiverse campaign is going to be. I actually had gargoyle models that I didn't even paint tonight. Yes, and I mean gargoyles from the Disney animated series Gargoyles. They're very small because they are made for a board game, but I primed them and I was going to paint them, but didn't get a chance to. We worked on some other stuff. So, as always, guys, thank you for watching. If you find you like what you see, consider following and signing up for notifications. We will be launching a whole new Patreon. My hope is midweek. I know I told you guys I was going to do it Saturday or Sunday, but I have to work on more of the stuff for it. But we're almost ready to go, and my goal is to have Friday be our first Patreon show, which is going to be crazy, but it's going to be kind of an intro show. And the idea of the Patreon show is it's really going to be a sit and paint where everybody can interact and we can all come together and paint. It's going to be, my hope is that it will be again a 10 o'clock show. If we feel that we want to start that earlier, I may play around with that time slot. But 10 o'clock on Fridays, we're going to hopefully do, again, a Patreon-only show. It's pretty cool. It's pretty awesome, and I'm really excited about it. And it's going to be a lot of different things, but it's going to be a way for you to interact and also a way for me to critique. So a way to critique and learn so you guys can actually share your stuff. So it's going to be a mixture of like a little bit of light painting, but a lot of sitting and talking too. So I'm looking forward to it. A different kind of format than what we normally do. All right, well, take care, guys, and I'll see you later. Vortexus, go get some sleep. Thank you for hanging out with me, as always, and I look forward to seeing you all in the next show tomorrow, which is our AOS show. So come back tomorrow and see us Tuesday, starting at 10. All your fantasy needs in one place. All right, thank you guys for watching, as always, and I look forward to seeing you at the next show. Take care, everybody.